Okay, so gone through 3 videos, and now we get to rock work. I have done a ton of rock work, and I love it. I love doing it. I love painting it. I love everything about rock work. It's not as complicated as it seems, and it's not as difficult as it seems. I'm going to show you some photos of the rock work I've done. All this was done with Brigden Enterprises. I've got a photo here of Eagle Junction from the Colorado and Coyote Creek. I also have another photo of as you're leaving Denver going up to Eagle Junction. These were 2 projects that I did for the Colorado and Coyote Creek. Those projects probably took me maybe about a week to get done, each of them. Some a little more difficult. So like the one going out of Denver going up to Eagle Junction, it was a little more challenging because I have to build all the trees and everything else. The rock work and all is a piece of cake. It's the trees and all the other stuff that goes with it that sometimes takes a little more. But nonetheless, we're just going to get into rock work. So we're going to deviate our videos just a bit here. I'm going to be focusing primarily on the plains area there, that grass one, the small one. We'll do the river on a separate cut away from that, and we'll pick that up as time goes on. So we're going to start with rock work. These again are from Brigden Enterprises. These are probably, and in particular this particular mold is probably hitting pretty kind of close to about 15 years old, if not older. And you can see it's got some usage. Okay, there's still white paint on it. That's fine. It's going to work. So when I originally started using this product, we used Vaseline on this, and I would take some Vaseline, smear it on my hands, and then smear it all over the mold and get it all over the mold as best I could. And since then, Brigden has come out with this Magic Bullet. This is basically a latex or acrylic mold release. That's all it is. Nothing more than that. They don't tell you what it is, but I smell it. I work around this kind of stuff, so I know exactly what it is. It's probably something like that, an acrylic or a latex mold release. That's all it is. You can see I love picking at these molds. But to be fair, it's really easy to use. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to try and mold, in particular, this area through here. This is what I want to pick up. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to simply spray the mold just like this, and we're going to let that dry. That's the first step. So as soon as this dries, we'll come back to the second step. Boy, that was a short segment, wasn't it? We'll get back to you in just a second. Okay, so here we are. We've got the mold release on there. I didn't figure you needed to see me paint white latex paint. Did I mention white latex paint? Yeah, or lacquer paint. You really need to do this. Now I went and did this outside. I don't like breathing the stuff any more than the next guy. Recommendation, flat. And you want to use white latex paint. Or lacquer paint, white lacquer paint. White lacquer paint. I think we got that message then. And what I did was I made sure that I sprayed it, and I tried to get it in all the crooks and the crevices. Now, of all the scenery projects I do, the 2 messiest things are rock castings and rivers. So, and this one, I have time. I have to cast this, then I got to get it over and get it glued on to the scenery. So, I buy these little measuring cups. These are some really nice measuring cups. And again, this is resin. Gloves. You definitely need gloves for this. You're going to get messy. Don't wear anything you don't want to have resin on. I'm going to tell you right now, those large projects, and it's really hard. This one will be easy because it's small, but you start casting molds this big, you're going to have resin all over the place, and you really want to have a place that's all, taped off and or not, the floor's covered and everything's already, because it will get messy. I'm not going to lie to you. So the mold release is on here, and the lacquer paint's on here, and it's dried. And now we're going to take and mix. Now, popsicle sticks work best, or if you're like me and you discovered you're out of them, which means I have to go buy some. I simply just made some stir sticks here. And we're going to start with the satin resin. And this is a 2-part. Boy, I haven't opened these yet, and they're a couple of years old. So we're going to break away while I try and get these open. Okay, we're back. So take A. Now I don't need a huge amount of this. I'm actually going to cast a pretty small casting, but I want enough resin to fill the area. So I'm going to do about 1 ounce each, and it's a 50-50 mixture of this stuff. Normally I have a marker, and then I mark A and B when I'm doing these. I try to do all my casting in large bulk. Just makes life a little easier. That's good. And that way I can actually just use these cups over and over and over again. But we're doing this video by itself, and so I'm only going to be able to do this one casting, but that's fine. That's all we need to do. There we go. There's A. There's B. There we go. And then we just stir this up. Now this gets warm, and when it mixes up and gets warm, it'll be ready to pour into the mold. And you'll see me move kind of at a fairly brisk pace as we begin to do this. The next one will be the foam, which will come right after this as soon as we get this in there. There we go, it's starting to get warm. Go. And now I'm just going to pour this right into this mold. Just like so. Now, normally what I do is I take it, so you just kind of move it around, and the mold, the amount that I mixed is going to be more than what I need to make this cast. But it'll work just fine. And what I'm doing is making sure that I get it all in the pockets, but more importantly, to get it up on these heels on top. And this is what gets messy, because you have to really kind of just use your fingers to get it to move around a bit. Now, once it's in place, just like it is, it'll be just fine. There we go. Now it's nice and smooth. It's covered over everything. There's a layer of it all over it. And we're going to just kind of set that aside there. I'm going to actually be back in a second. Learn to throw those gloves away when I'm done putting the casting on there. Okay, now that's sitting there to the side, and I'm going to grab these other two, and I'm going to mix some foam up. Now, I don't need as much foam. This is only just giving it some body to it. That's all it's doing. You can tell I haven't done these in a while. There we go. But it's still good in there. So I'm only going to do about a 1/2 ounce each. of these. Because this stuff is going to expand, and I don't even know if I'm going to need a ½ ounce, to be fair with you. I might go with a ¼ ounce because this is an awfully small casting. There we go. Excuse me. And we'll do the same with this one here. Now what you may not be able to see is that resin is starting to kind of go milky white, which is what I want it to do. That means it's actually hardening up real nice. And now we're gonna grab this and we're gonna just pour this in. You don't need a lot of this. This is just to give it some body. I used to do really thick pours, and then I discovered that it's just wasting product. A thin pour works just as well. And there it is, it's starting to turn. This stuff will go really fast. I'm going to get a glove on. Simply just going to pour this right on in my mixture. And the purpose of this is, like I said, just to give it some backing and some body. There we go. You're like, wow, that's an awful thin amount, but watch what happens. We smear it around. And we just let it kind of do its thing all by itself. You don't really have to do much of anything, just smear it around. And we're going to watch right on the video here how that's going to expand. All right, I'm going to go throw this. I'll be back in a second. All right. Now, I've got my hot glue gun here. It's ready to go. Set that right there. And we got our little bit of scenery here. Now, these are my tin snips. That's what I'm going to use to cut to make my little form here. Now, if you take a look, you can see this is starting to expand. I'll bring it up close so you can see that. And that's starting to expand right over top of that. And that's what I want it to do. And I'm waiting for this foam to become firm enough that I can peel it out of there and not get it sticking all over my fingers. And that's kind of what we're waiting on right now. And that's what makes this process. It's John and me have it down to a science. After building that much rock work, we can do this without even thinking twice. But it is important that you get it to this point and you're ready to go. So I've got my glue ready, I've got everything ready. All I'm doing right now is just touching to see when that foam has begun to harden up a bit. And as you can see, it's still on the end of my finger. So we're waiting. And it's now almost, I don't know if you can tell on the video, but it's almost all yellow and the white satin is kind of being covered over. And that's exactly what we want. You don't need a lot of that. You saw how little I put on there and it's expanding out from there. So, and obviously this casting is bigger than my rock face here that we're going to work on. But with the snips, and you can cut down what you need, and it'll be soft enough still. I'll be able to press and move it in there, and then I'll show you what we do with the plaster afterwards. But it's really important that you kind of get it to this point. You get it to the point where, again, it's just See, it's still sticky. So you have some time. I'm going to say when I pull it out of this mold, I've got a good 10-15 minutes to work on it. Now, there's something this size is going to be easy to do in that time frame. If you're dealing with a 2 by 3 foot section, that gets really dicey. But to be fair, usually when I'm doing something that big, I'm dealing with rockwork that's much larger. So, and yeah, it's getting there. It's getting there. Still tacky. But it's just patient work, and like I said, John and me have been doing this. We've got this down to absolute science. The two of us could actually, we'd get the first one going, and then once I peel it off and I begin to cut and mold and form it into our rock formations, John would be working on the second one. He'd already had, while this was going on, we'd be prepping another mold with release and paint and everything, and then we were basically would have our cups already ready, measured out with how much, and we doing this, there's no how do you learn how much you need. Well, doing it over and over again and discovering it. But we'd get it down to a science. We'd have lines on the cups and feel it here, feel it here, feel it there, feel it there. Okay, here we go, mix it up again, and it would go in a cycle, and we could actually get that entire Eagle Junction, John and me did in, I'm going to say 3 hours, 4 hours tops, and had it all prepped and ready to go. So let's see what we got here. It's still a little tacky. It's getting there though. And that and again, the only way to learn how to do this stuff is to experiment, try, make mistakes, and that's exactly what John and me have done over the years. Is, we've gotten this down to a science, but it didn't start that way. There were a lot of times we were like, okay, we got way too much satin, and we'd have it dripping all over the cement floor and everything, or it'd be like, okay, we're not getting enough foam, or wow, we've got 2 inches of foam sitting on top of this stuff. So it takes a little trial and error, but I'm hoping this video, if you decide to go this method, you can learn that, hey, I don't need that much foam. And satin, I put a lot of satin in there. I probably could have gotten away with about maybe a third less of what I put on there, but that's fine. If you put too much satin in there, that's not the end of the world. See, it's starting to stick on my fingers. It's almost there. It's almost there. So I know this is like watching paint dry, isn't it? It's exciting. It's riveting. I'm sure that you're just sitting there going, wow. Now, I can feel in the mold, so it gets pretty warm. So it's not doing too bad. Still a little tacky. It's almost there. As you can see, it's sticking there, but you can see that it's now not sticking to my glove. It's actually pulling back down. And here in just a minute here, we're going to start peeling this out. It's not sticking to my finger. Patience. A little bit did. That's what you want to be patient. It goes quick, but I like this. Like I said, it's really nice, and I'll show you how well this works. Okay, so we're going to take this mold, and I'm simply stretching it and pulling on it all at the same time here. I'll have that split vision up so you can see. And I'm just basically trying to I'm stretching the mold to get the resin to separate there. See how that just kind of begins to separate. That's nice. And that's all we're doing. You can see how soft it is. Right now I could tear this really easily. So I want to be very careful. And I take my time working this mold out of, working this cast out of this mold. And there's no real rush here. It's not like it's going to harden in a second here. It's going to take some time here, and it's going to work just fine. Now, these little thin pieces that are out on the outside, these are great for joining the molds together, because you can press them in, they'll cast together. And you see, this is what's messy. This is what gets on your hands, and it's the resin and everything all, it's still kind of soft. It'll come out. There we go. And I just flip it over a bit, and I just begin to easily work this right out of there. There we go. There's our casting right there. So now we're going to take this casting. Yeah, I may have got it out just a little early, but that's why we put down this piece of board here. There we go. And we're going to just simply lay this, and I'm looking at it going, what would make sense here? There we go, just like so. So I'm going to take this just like so, and I'm kind of just getting a real feel of what I want here. And then I'm going to just take my tin snips, and I'm literally going to cut just like so. Okay, just like so. And then I'm going to take, cut just like so, going down there. And we'll probably take a little of that off. There we go. And let's see, I think I'm going to take a little of that off. And I'm going to work that off there. I'll leave that. And there we go. Now, I saved these because I can use them later on with with other castings. So this is still pretty flimsy. You can see I could actually use more of this if I needed to, but I don't. Actually, I'm going to take a little bit right here, and I'm going to just lay it right on top of that, just like so. Okay, now, while it seems like it stuck there, it didn't. So now I'm going to take my hot glue gun, and I'm just going to put a little hot glue there. And then I'm going to just move this right back into place again. And just work it in there. And this little piece that I want, I'm going to put just a little glue on it. There we go. And I'm going to set it up just like so. And there we go. Yeah. And I want to take this little piece of rock here, work up here. I want to kind of fold it back so it looks like the crest of the rock there. There you go. And that's it. That's how I do my rock castings. That simple. And the next step, we'll show you how you paint them and blend them into the scenery. Okay, so we've had a chance. This is hardened. You can see this is now quite hard. It's not flexible. It actually is kind of brittle now almost. It's still got a little flex into it. And just if you ever run into a situation that you need to, a hot paint stripping gun. You can hit this and warm this up a bit, flex a little bit more, but that's about it afterwards. But you can see this is quite, you're not going to chip this stuff. That's why I like it. You're not going to have to worry about chipping, you're not going to have to worry about somebody leaning on it or anything like that. It'll be just fine. Now, you might be able to see here, I've got a little gaps in here, I've got a few gaps in here to the heel. Yep, into my hot glue didn't stick to that. That's okay, we'll work with what we got there. Actually, we'll work with the plaster and make it work. So, again, I use simple joining drywall compound, not because anything more than I don't have to mix it. That's the only reason why I use this stuff. And I just simply just kind of fill it into here, making it fill in along the gaps. It's nothing more than that. And it's not that complicated. All I'm trying to do is just make it look like the rocks were always there and just blending it in. That's all I'm doing. And I can then, in turn, I'll put soil back onto this again, and the seams will all disappear. Now, when I'm working with large molds and I've got a large area that I'm dealing with, I simply take the same joining compound and I go right in between the molds, right up there, just whatever I have to do to make those gaps disappear. Now, I don't want them to be smooth, especially in the molds. I don't worry if there's a little hole there on the mold in between a pair of them, because it will look like just a little crack or crevice in the rock. It'll be just fine. You don't have to get that, really nut bolt detail oriented. But now down here where I have this big hole here, I want this to kind of get a little filled in. So I'm just going to take some joining compound, and just like this, I'm just forming this heel to make it make sense that rock is there. And I'm going right over my soil, everything there. It'll be just fine. Just like so. Okay, and then this little piece that didn't quite stick in there, yeah, we're gonna give it a way to stick in there. Put it in there, and put just a little plaster to help hold it in place. And there we go. Now, you can take a brush, just like so, just kind of stipple it in so it looks like it always was there. Just kind of stipple it. Stippling is just pressing on it. And that's all I'm doing, just giving it some texture, pressing into it. There you go. That's it. So now, we'll let this set up and we'll start painting. And I'll show you painting, and then we'll come back and put some soil back in there, and everything will be just fine. So, we'll let that kind of dry, and we'll be back in probably about an hour or so. Okay, so here we are. It's dry, and the first thing we're going to do is going to add a little temper paint, and we simply, this is black, we're going to highlight the shadows. Now I'd use this brush, but the problem is it's wet, so we're going to use another brush, and it's not a very big area. So all we're going to do is just take this and just kind of brush it into here, just like so. This is gonna put some shadows into the crevices. That's all it's gonna do. Because in a minute here, I'm gonna spray it with some water. Can't remember if I have the water sitting nearby here. Well, we'll get that in just a second. Okay, that goes like this. I'm gonna to leave that. We're not going to clean it up right away. And, oh, here's the water. Okay. So this is nothing more than basically dry poster paint. And, okay, that spring got stuck in there. So all we're going to do is I'm just going to simply just spray this. That's all I'm going to do. And it's going to basically just wash away like so. And I'm going to take and just clean up this water mess here and this poster paint as it just soaks away. Now if I'm on the layout, I would just bathe this until I got most of the paint out of there. There we go, just like so. Because it's small, I can pick it up and move it around, but that's all I would do, just like so. Okay, that's the beginning of our rocks right there. And we're gonna just let that dry a little bit while I'm mixing up some other paints. Now you're like, Mike must be thirsty, he's got a lot of glasses here of water. Actually, we're gonna make some diluted paints here for us. So what I do, using my palette here, I simply just take, you can tell which color is my primary because it's almost gone and it's almost always gone, but we'll just squeeze a little out of here. Wow, we're out. I think we might actually be out, but we'll have to use then some basic paint, which I have that color in basic, so hang on just a sec. Okay, we're back. This is raw sienna. It's probably one of my base colors that I use most of the time. Now, if you take a look at, like, I'm going to grab some of these other colors here. This paint is really thick. And that's why I kind of like it for doing the rocks, because it's nice and thick. And it holds up a little thicker in that water, but it'll be fine because all we're doing, this is, I kid you not, we are just going to make this lightest of changes of color. We're going to add lots of layers on top of this, layer after layer. Can't open that one up. I have my trusty pliers. You can tell I haven't done much rock work in the last couple of years because I've been building the layout. There we go. Okay. Well, those are my four primary. The other colors I'm not going to use until later on, after we get some color in here. So I'm going to start with this first color, and as you can see, that's already pretty dry already. It's not dry, it's just fairly dry. And we are literally going to make just the wettest of wet paints. There we go. And we're just going to dab it on there, just like so. And then we're going to take, rinse that out a bit. And I'm going to take a little of this burnt sienna. Again, I want it really down wet. There we go. And I just like that. That's all I'm doing. And we'll let this now dry a bit. Now, remember, I want it to be kind of almost this color right here. But I can't rush it. I want some of that different colors to stand out. So we're just going to go just like that and let it dry. This is going to take a long process because it's going to dry and then we're going to come back and dry and come back. Matter of fact, so much so, I'm not even going to cover the paint up. I'm actually going to cheat. Voila, the cheating tool. And I'm just going to dry it out some. we'll pick it right back up. Okay, there it is, a little drier. So I'm going to add, it's a little darker than I want. So I'm going to add a little more of this to my water mixture. Not be in a hurry. And I believe they kind of call this just leopard striping. And that's all I'm doing, just blotches, just like that. And then I'm going to hit it again and let that dry. Alright, there we go. Now I'm noticing right down here I want a little more of that color, a little more down in here. And I'm going to take just ever so slight of some red here. I want to just touch it. Just touch it. There we go. That's all there is to it. I'm going to bring it up close to the camera here so you can see what it looks like. That's it. That's all the more we're going to do with that. And that's going to be just fine. Now, of course, there's always that question. What if I make a mistake? Well, if you make a mistake, gesso, mop brush, paint it again, and do it again. It's easy enough. Just put it on there. It'll turn white again. You'll have a little color going through, but it won't hurt anything. It won't hurt a thing. If you got it too dark, you can take, if you want to, you can use a rattle can and spray it with a primer. A nice, you want to use a automotive flat primer. You can get them in white. Just spray it, and then go back in with the gesso again. Start all over again. It's not that hard. It's really not that hard at all. But that'll work right there. So now, the next step will be putting the dirt back in here and starting to get ourselves, also it looks like it's all the hill. So we'll do that next. I'm going to clean up this paint mess, and then we'll do that. So be back in just 10 minutes or so. Hold tight.